Following Storm Dara at the weekend, the weather is back to relative calm across the UK this week as higher pressure has built in. How long will the quiet weather last, and how's it looking in the run-up to Christmas? Some of the more extended computer model runs are now covering the big day. So I'm going to be talking about the early hints for the run-up to and for Christmas Day itself. And I'll be talking a bit about an extreme heatwave that's ongoing across southern parts of Africa. All of that to come in this week's Met Office Deep Dive. You can find this on the Met Office YouTube channel and the Met Office app as well. And if you're not subscribed to the Met Office YouTube channel, I strongly encourage you to do so, and then you won't miss one of these in the future. Now, Storm Dara hit at the weekend, and this satellite loop shows how it developed on Thursday, swung into the UK during Friday, and then crossed the country on Saturday morning. Here's the big hook of cloud just as Storm Dara was pushing into the North Sea. And part of the issue from Dara, in fact, was high pressure that was to the west of the UK. And not only was that moving in as Dara was moving away, but that high pressure was building. So, yeah, we had a deep low across the UK and deepen as it moved across central parts of the country. But in addition to that, higher pressure to the west was elbowing in. It was also becoming higher, and as a result, the pressure gradient tightened, the isobars got tighter, and those isobars with high pressure to the west and low pressure in the North Sea were directing the winds from the northwest. So we had this sustained period of very strong winds throughout the weekend, a long-lasting period of impactful winds, and wind gusts in places more than 70, 80, 90 miles an hour, coming from the northwest, which is a relatively unusual direction for such strong winds in the UK. Normally we get our strongest winds coming in from the southwest, but in this case we had sustained northwesterly, very strong winds. Here's a summary of the wind gusts from Storm Dara. And as you can see, here's England and Wales, widely in excess of 50 miles an hour, around coastal parts 60, 70 miles an hour, and for parts of Wales and the southwest, wind gusts in excess of 80, and in some spots 90 miles an hour. The wind gusts in these areas peaked early Saturday morning. That's when we had a red warning for parts of coastal Wales and into the southwest. Amber warning across many other western parts of the UK. Yellow further east. And for Scotland and Northern Ireland, yeah, equally southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, wind gusts in excess of 60 or 70 miles an hour, particularly around coastal parts. Not quite as windy for northern Scotland. And but even here it was a blustery day with spells of rain and some significant hill snow as well, which caused some issues early on Saturday. Now, the impacts from Storm Dara were widespread, but particularly across western parts of the UK. Almost 2 million houses without power, and damaging wind gusts brought down trees onto cars and property. And we saw dangerous conditions around coasts, and tragically 2 lives were lost. We've also seen impacts from the rainfall, and those impacts are ongoing. This is the latest from the River Severn, the level of it at Bewdley in Worcestershire. It just shows that it's continuing to rise and likely to peak on Tuesday afternoon, and that's at the kind of mid-levels of the River Severn, so it just goes to show that some of these larger rivers are slower to respond to systems like Storm Dara. But thankfully, we've now got higher pressure arriving, so a much calmer, drier, more settled week to come. That higher pressure centred over northern parts of the UK. Towards the south, we've still got some isobars on the map, and we've still got the jet stream running across there with this low pressure area over Iberia. So it's not all plain sailing across the UK. That higher pressure centred over northern parts will lead to sunny skies across Scotland and Northern Ireland, as can be seen here for Tuesday afternoon. Parts of northwest England and North Wales as well seeing some sunshine. But with the easterly airflow further south, we've got a lot of cloud across the rest of England and Wales. And some showery rain. Fewer showers compared with Monday, but yeah, it's a bit drizzly out there for southern counties of England during Tuesday afternoon. A brisk breeze as well. It's making it feel on the cold side, I suspect, across the south and southeast. Further north, actually, temperatures are lower where we've got the sunnier skies because been a cold start to the day. And if we play this forward, you can see little change over the next few days. The main issues actually will come in the north, where we're going to see those clear skies by nights, temperatures falling away, frost and some dense fog patches. That fog becoming fairly widespread across parts of Northern Ireland and the central belt during Tuesday night into the start of Wednesday. In fact, pausing it there, I can just zoom in to the graphic here. And this is as we're waking up on Wednesday, 6 a.m. And you can just see some fog patches there across the central belt. The greatest signal for fog is around the Glasgow area for Wednesday morning, but also western parts of Northern Ireland. And it's a cold start to the day. These are the kinds of temperatures we can expect. -8 there for sheltered parts of Scotland. Widely sub-zero under those clear skies. Where we've got the fog as well, -3, -4 Celsius. Northern Ireland as well. Temperatures in the low single figures or even just below freezing. So widespread frost and some of that dense fog. Now playing that forward actually, what you can see is as the morning progresses on Wednesday morning, the temperatures don't rise that far. And in fact, where we've got some fog there, just north of Glasgow, temperatures staying at -3 all day because of the freezing fog sticking around. The sun is weak at this time of year. It's difficult to burn off the fog. So yeah, could see some stubborn freezing fog continuing in patches through central parts of Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland as well. And that's really going to suppress the temperatures on Wednesday. This is 1 p.m. and you can see temperatures in some of the colder spots of Scotland staying below freezing. Stark contrast to further south across England and Wales because it's another cloudy day for many areas. We start off frost and fog free, although there'll be some low cloud covering the hills, some gloom first thing, and temperatures in the afternoon of 6 or 7 degrees typically. Some broken cloud there for parts of the Midlands and North Wales, but otherwise it's grey skies and 6, 7 degrees and still some showery rain for the far south because of this easterly breeze. Fast forward to Thursday, and little change really, but southern parts. The one big difference that starts to appear on the maps is this area through northern England, parts of East Anglia. There's this little plume of more moist air coming in from the North Sea, and as you can see some blues on the map there. Some showery rain starting to push into East Anglia, East Midlands, up through northeast England, and a lot of low cloud covering the hills as well. That extending into southern Scotland and parts of Northern Ireland, so perhaps less low-lying fog around for Northern Ireland, southern Scotland first thing Thursday. A cloudier picture for many. And into Friday, that trend continues with actually many parts of the UK seeing an increase in the cloud cover and outbreaks of rain just pushing into Scotland, Northern Ireland. That cloud's going to be low, so it's going to be covering the hills. Could even come down to the surface in some places. So Friday's a gloomy day, not much brightness out there. Some sunshine for the far north of Scotland, perhaps the far northwest of Scotland. But it's still going to feel cold. Temperatures typically 3 to 5 or 6 degrees, as you can see. And some of those outbreaks of rain. Something's happening out there to the northwest. That's a weather front that's starting to move in, and that's going to bring about a change into the weekend. More on that in a moment, but I'm just going to take a look at the temperatures, not just in the UK, but also further afield. There's a big contrast between what's going on in the UK and what's going on in the southern hemisphere. Now, just want to show the temperature trend there for some of the coldest parts of Scotland. They're shown up by the larger blue circles here. So some of these more sheltered parts of Scotland, as you can see, these are the minimum temperatures, -12, -10, but they do rise into the weekend, so this upward trend later in the week and into the weekend as we see cloudier weather and some outbreaks of rain arrive. Likewise, maximum temperatures around 0 or just below, but then starting to rise into the weekend. Conversely, further south, just picking a random location on the map there, you can see temperatures by day, 6, 7 by night, 3, 4, but then both of those rising as we go into the start of next week. So it's a cold week of weather for many parts of the UK, but the coldest weather will be under those clearer skies in the north, across parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland over the next few days and nights. Further south, it's a lot of cloud cover, so quite chilly, but nothing particularly frosty signalled. Meanwhile, we zoom out and travel further south across the world. I want to focus on southern parts of Africa because here we've got an extreme heat wave taking place, and extremely long as well as extremely high temperatures. Just to pick this location here, Marienthal in Namibia, and you can see how the temperatures are rising into the low 40s and then up to 47 degrees by the weekend. So some unusually high temperatures, even for Namibia. Now, obviously, it's the summer. It's Africa. You expect it to be hot. But these temperatures are unusually high, as I'll show in just a moment. Likewise, if we just pick this location, Tabazimbi, and temperatures up to 48 Celsius, 47 Celsius Friday, Saturday. And these are the minimum temperatures up into the high 20s, low 30s, so some really oppressive heat. Nearby, we've got the capital of Botswana, which is Gaborone, and again, temperatures up to 39 Celsius. Now, those are the kinds of temperatures you might think occur in this part of the world, but here's another thing to mention. Gaborone is 1,000 meters high. That's, higher than most of the UK, higher than most of the hills in England and Wales. So as you go higher in the atmosphere, you typically expect lower temperatures. And in fact, a typical rule of thumb is that if you go up 100, 150 meters or so, the temperature will decrease by about 1 degree. So likewise, if you bring those temperatures down, you might be able to add on 8, 9, 10 degrees to what they would be if this area wasn't so hilly and mountainous. So 39 degrees there. And the other place I mentioned, Tabazimbi, just bring it up again, might have lost it. Anyway, that was 48 degrees, and that's equally just under 1,000 meters high. So these are extreme temperatures. Another way of showing how extreme the temperatures are is on this meteogram from the European model. This shows the average maximum temperature for Gaborone, and it's typically about 32, 33 degrees for the time of year. Average minimum temperature just under 20 degrees. These boxes show the forecast temperature, and it's taking it from lots of different computer model runs, and so it's an indication of the trend but also the uncertainty. The larger the box, the greater the range of probable temperatures. But effectively what we're seeing are these boxes going above the top red line, which is the extreme. So that's the record in the model climate from the European model. So it takes 20 years worth of weather, and that top line is the highest that it witnesses at this time of year from 20 years of computer model runs. And yeah, on Friday into Saturday, those boxes are above that model extreme, which is 40 degrees or so. Looking at that from a map point of view, this shows a similar sort of thing. So it's highlighting where the temperatures are extreme compared with that 20-year model climate, where we've got the dark reds. Effectively, it's very rare or extreme temperatures that we're expecting through the next few days. This is Wednesday, and the numbers as well indicate how extreme the temperatures are. So some of the places here are 90, 91. That indicates that it's in the top 10% or so of extreme temperatures, comparing it with 20 years worth of model data. This is Thursday, and what tends to be happening as the week goes on is the heat intensifies and moves further east. And we've got numbers like 95, 97, 94, and those just indicate that it's the top few percent of the model climate or the extremes. Botswana, South Africa, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Zambia. These are the locations likely to see the most extreme temperatures. Botswana's national record is 44 Celsius. I think Zambia's national record is 42.4 Celsius. So some national records could be broken. And going into Friday as well, if anything, the heat is becoming more widespread. It's shifting further east, but it's becoming more widespread. And the darker reds appearing there, indicating it's becoming more extreme. Why is this so impactful? And why is it happening? Basically, we've got this strong area of high pressure, this upper high pressure as well as surface high pressure. And the rainy season should be starting about now, but it's been delayed. So they've just got ongoing dry and sunny weather, scorched ground. And in this part of the world, they've had an ongoing drought since the end of the wet season, early 2023. And this is further contributing to those issues. And at this time of year, with the rainy season supposed to be starting, they should be planting the main crop, which is maize, but that's likely to be delayed by at least a month. And so there's likely to be, health issues for humans and for animals, and big impacts for agriculture because of the ongoing drought and the delay to this wet season. So yeah, some very extreme weather in southern Africa. Complete contrast to what has been suggested for the UK for Christmas. Incredible UK weather maps turn white as 36-hour snow bomb hits in time for Christmas. Now, I know Deep Dive audience is an intelligent audience, so you don't need me to tell you that this is absolute nonsense, not just forecasting with such confidence and certainty, more than 2 weeks ahead, but also making up terms like 36-hour snow bomb, which doesn't really mean anything at all in meteorology. But what is shown here is one computer model run that was from yesterday, from the American model for Christmas Day, because yesterday was the first day that computer models extended as far as Christmas Day. And, very excitingly for papers like this, the first computer model runs indicated some snow in some parts of the UK. But I've checked today's extended run of the GFS model, and it's showing the complete opposite. Very mild southwesterly winds and outbreaks of rain in places. So if those two different computer model runs are showing two completely different types of weather, what on earth can we say about Christmas? Can we say anything at all? Well, what meteorologists actually do is, rather than cherry pick one computer model run for more than 2 weeks' time, the computer models are run lots and lots of times, and then we can pick out areas where they are agreeing and areas where they're disagreeing, and then we can talk about most likely weather patterns and less likely weather patterns, or common themes or trends and so on. And that's what we do all the time here at the Met Office in our 10-day trend forecasts and our 14-day forecasts that you find on our app, and sometimes in the Deep Dive as well. So let's take a look. I'm going to rewind and look at this weekend first of all, because that helps explain how the weather may evolve up to and including Christmas Day. So, at the moment, we've got high pressure over northern parts of the UK, but fast forward to Saturday, that high pressure is slipping away. Why is that? Part of the reason, actually, going back to Friday, part of the reason is a cold air outbreak across northern parts of America. That's going to strengthen the jet stream coming out of the eastern seaboard there, and initially the jet stream just pushes the wind further north into Greenland and builds this area of high pressure on the other side of Atlantic. And as that high pressure builds, it forces some weather fronts in between that high and the high that's currently over us, forces those weather fronts into northwestern parts of the UK for the weekend. And that's the front that I mentioned earlier that's going to bring some outbreaks of rain on Saturday into parts of northern and western Scotland. That weather front then sinks south, it fizzles away. But the upstream pattern across the Atlantic has fundamentally changed by this stage. We've got this strong jet streak, this slice of enhanced jet stream coming across the Atlantic, but it becomes more flat with time, and the whole pattern actually flattens. By that I mean it becomes more westerly, less loopy, and by Sunday, this is Sunday 11 o'clock, we've got a different setup. Rather than high pressure to the north of the UK, which is what we've got at the moment, we've got high pressure to the south, and we've got this strong westerly airflow across the country. Weather fronts coming into the north and west of Scotland, some significant rain building up across western Scotland. We're talking about more than 100 millimetres by the end of the weekend over some exposed parts of western Scotland. Of course, Scotland hasn't been quite as wet as other parts of the UK during recent weeks, but could see some impacts from that. It's going to be windy as well with tightly packed isobars. Further south, higher pressure closer by, and so mostly settled. But take a look at this. Near the Canaries, this area of low pressure and this little trough in the jet stream coming through across the Atlantic. And actually, just playing it as far as it goes there, what you can just start to see is the first sign of the trough in the jet stream over the Atlantic beginning to join up with this area of low pressure. So that's likely to join up, pick up that. This is an area of rain and showers. And then by the middle of next week, all of that, this area of low pressure over here, this area of low pressure over here, is likely to come in and hit the UK from the west. But this is a really complicated setup because we've got several things that start to interact with each other in several days' time in uncertain ways. And so what we can say with relative confidence is that we start next week with these westerlies, the more unsettled weather across northern parts of the country, more settled further south, and increasingly mild. Remember, I showed those graphs which show the temperature increasing across all parts of the UK by Monday next week. Then areas of low pressure are likely to move in from the west and start to affect the UK. Maybe Tuesday, more likely Wednesday, Thursday to bring more unsettled weather. But where those low pressure systems come from, that's the main source of uncertainty for the middle part of next week. This is Tuesday. This is the most likely weather pattern for Tuesday. It shows low pressure coming in from the west or the southwest, and outbreaks of rain into western parts, drier further east. But fast forward to Wednesday, and this is the most likely weather pattern. A similar sort of thing, but more widespread wet and windy weather arriving. However, that's a 20% probability, and there's a 12% probability. This is the second most likely weather pattern. That low will be in a slightly different place. It'll be further north. The more unsettled weather will be more widespread across the UK. And a third weather pattern here, again, shows a slightly different orientation of these lows. One over there to Iceland, one much further southwest, bringing spells of rain in to the south, but many central parts of the UK drier. So it's not necessarily the case that we don't have a clue, because there are strong signs of a common theme starting to occur around the middle of next week, and that is the weather's turning more unsettled. Outbreaks of rain, strengthening winds are arriving. Exactly where they hit first and where we'll see the heaviest rain, that's the main source of uncertainty. Likewise, by the end of next week, some computer model projections have the rain clearing through, like this one, with higher pressure to the southwest. Others keep it wet in the west, drier to the east, and others still have it more widely unsettled. So again, picking out common themes, what we can say is that it's likely to be unsettled, it's likely to be changeable across the UK. There'll be spells of rain moving through from Wednesday, Thursday to Friday, and possibly into Saturday as well. This is Sunday, and still we've got areas of low pressure affecting the UK, but one small change starting to occur through this weekend. This is a long way off, 21st, 22nd of December, so we're talking about 12 days away. One subtle change is that now we've got lower pressure, more likely towards the north of the UK, higher pressure trying to build in from the south. This is another computer model weather pattern that's coming through for that same period, Sunday the 22nd of December, and it's got higher pressure more firmly in charge across southern parts of the UK. And likewise, here's a third that shows, for the same day, shows higher pressure to the southwest. So, common themes through next week: westerlies to begin things, with low pressure to the north, higher pressure to the south. Then, around Wednesday time, low pressure developing more widely across the UK, spells of wet and windy weather for many, very mild as that happens as well. Then by the weekend after, higher pressure starting to return again from the south. Too early for specifics, but those are the general trends. After that, and now we're talking about the week of Christmas, there are some weather patterns that are starting to appear in the computer model output that give a sense, a small flavour of what we might expect for the week of Christmas. One commonly occurring theme is for higher pressure to the south, lower pressure towards Iceland, and this strong westerly airflow, a bit like how I described the weather for next Monday. So westerlies, mild, these are the temperature anomalies, so a degree or two above average, spells of rain, especially towards the northwest. That high pressure is key. Where that ends up for that Christmas week is crucial in determining exactly what kind of weather we'll get through that week, because that higher pressure is the common theme in most of the computer model projections. In this one, it's more firmly across the south of the UK. Again, mild, but the unsettled weather more towards the far northwest, many places more settled. And in this one, it's more towards the southwest, and it's a bit colder with these northwesterly winds. Now, the GFS run that I mentioned that came out on Monday that had snowfall, that was mostly a more amplified, more extreme version of this with the higher pressure further north and more of a northerly wind. And that is a possibility, but at the moment, it's not looking like the most likely option. This sums up all of that model variability for the week of Christmas, 23rd of December through to the 30th of December. And this shows the average pressure anomaly from all the different computer models for that week. And it shows quite strongly a signal for higher pressure out there to the southwest of the UK. That would lead to westerlies or northwesterlies. So unsettled, the more unsettled weather in the northwest, drier towards the south and southwest, and mostly relatively mild. Now, that's from the most recent set of model runs. This is from the set of model runs from a day before and a day before that. And they all show roughly the same thing, although 24 hours earlier, the high was a bit more amplified, and that would lead to perhaps a colder feel, northwesterlies or northerlies, and the temperature anomaly for the corresponding weeks is sitting below each of those. The most recent models show reds across the UK and would suggest, I'm just going to skip back to that, would suggest milder than average, but 24 hours earlier had out closer to average. So basically, this is from the Met Office extended model as well, MOGREPS, and this shows an average higher pressure anomaly to the southwest of the UK. So there's this broad agreement for that week of Christmas at the moment for higher pressure somewhere to the west or southwest of the UK, mostly a westerly Atlantic influence for the UK itself, more unsettled towards the north, more settled towards the south. Certainly no signs of a strong signal for a white Christmas, but nothing could be ruled out right at this stage, and it would be foolish to take one computer model run and go with that, as we all know, I'm sure. And so yeah, if you see headlines like this, I would strongly encourage you to ignore them and head to the Met Office YouTube channel. We'll be keeping a close eye on things as they evolve in the run-up to Christmas. We'll keep you updated right here. We've got the 10-day trend. Tomorrow, of course, we've got our 14-day outlook that we put on our app. All of that involves a look at the very latest information, and we'll be updating things as and when we've got more and more new information. But thanks for joining me this week. That's all I've got for you.